In this video, we're going to take a look at dividing whole numbers by fractions, and we're going to focus on dividing by unit fractions. So here we have a division problem with 6 divided by 1/2. So we're asking how many 1/2s are in 6. So I need to take a look at my 6 wholes here, and I'm going to cut each one of them in half. So I know that this part is a half, and I know that this part is a half. And that is the same all the way through each one of these rectangles. So now we just need to count how many halves we have. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So we know that 6 divided by 1/2 equals 12. So here we have 6 divided by 1/3. So like in our previous problem where we broke each rectangle up into 2 parts, this time we're going to break it up into 3 parts because our denominator is a 3. So here's 1/3, here's 1/3, and here's 1/3. And that's going to be the same through all of these rectangles. So now I can just count how many 1/3s I have. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So I know that 6 divided by 1/3 equals 18, because there are 18 1/3s in 6. So here we have a division problem where we're dividing by a 1/4. So again, just like I did before, I'm going to cut this into 4 parts because my denominator is 4. So here I have my 4 parts, and that means each one is worth 1/4 of the whole. So I'm going to do that with all of my whole rectangles. And again, knowing that each one of those little sections is worth 1/4, I can count how many 1/4s I have. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24. So I now know that 6 divided by 1/4 gives me 24, because there are 24 1/4s in 6. So here we have the problem 6 divided by 1/6. So I want to know how many 1/6 are in 6. So again, I want to break up each whole into 6 pieces. So we'll do that by doing this. And so we know that there is 1/6 for each little section. And we'll do that with all of them when we want to make them as even as possible. So now that I have everything divided up into 1/6, I can go through and figure out how many 1/6 I have. Now, I'm starting to get quite a few little pieces. So what I can do is I know that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 make up each whole rectangle. And so if I have 6 here, that means I'm going to have 6 here, 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 and I'm going to have 6 here. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groups of 6. So if I take 6 multiplied by 6, that gives me 36 total. So I know that 6 divided by 1/6 equals 36, because there are 36 sixths in 6. Let's talk a little bit about the parts of our division problem. So the first thing that we have is what is called a reciprocal. And a reciprocal is just swapping the numerator and the denominator of the fraction around. So for example, if I started off with, say, 2/3, I would make my 3, which is my denominator, my numerator, and I would make my 2, which is my numerator, my new denominator. So I'm just swapping the two numbers around. Or I'm just flipping the fraction upside down. So again, if I started with 4/5, just flipping the fraction upside down, which means this is going to come up here and this is going to go down here. And another name for a reciprocal is called multiplicative inverse. And the multiplicative part means multiplication, and the inverse part is basically the same thing as the reciprocal. We're just taking our fraction and we're flipping it upside down. So let's take a look at some numbers here, or some fractions, and find the reciprocal or multiplicative inverse of each one. So here, the first one, I start with a whole number. So whole numbers are fractions over 1. So that means I'm going to take my 1 and make it the numerator, and I'm going to make my 5 the denominator. So my reciprocal then would be 1/5. For my 3/4, I would put my 4 on top and the 3 on the bottom. For my 5/2, I would put my 2 on the top and 5 on the bottom. And for 78, again, that's over 1. So we would flip it and put 1 over 78. So let's kind of put this all together. The picture, the reciprocal, the division. So I have 5 divided by 1/4. That's asking how many 1/4 do I have in 5. So if I break this apart into my fourths, I know that each little piece here is worth 1/4. So I can do that for all of them. And again, I want to make them as even as possible. So now I'm going to count and see how many 1/4 I have. Well, here I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, like I did in the other problem, I know for this whole rectangle, I have 4/4. So that means in this rectangle, I also have 4/4. In this rectangle, I also have 4 of them. In this rectangle, again, 4 of them. And in this rectangle, I have 4 of them. So now I know that 4 times 5 equals 20. So based on that, I know that 5 divided by 1/4 equals 20. Now, let's talk about the multiplicative inverse and how that plays a role. So I'm going to keep my 5 just the way that it is. My multiplicative inverse means that I'm going to change this to multiplication, and inverse or reciprocal means that I'm going to flip this into 4/1. I know that 5 is the same as 5/1. So 5 times 4 gives me 20, and 1 times 1 gives me 1, and 20/1 is the same as 20. And if you notice, this multiplication is the same as this multiplication. So as we can see, dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal or multiplicative inverse. So as we saw in the last one, our problem was 5 divided by 1/4. And what we did with that is we kept the first number of 5. Our multiplicative, we changed the division to multiplication. And our inverse, or our reciprocal, we flipped the fraction to 4/1. And so this was 5/1. 5 times 4 is 20. 1 times 1 is 1, which is the same thing as 20. So here we have a couple of problems where we're going to apply that multiplicative inverse. So here we have 9 divided by 1/7. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to keep our 9 just the way that it is. Multiplicative is changing that to multiplication, and inverse or reciprocal is flipping the next fraction. So 7/1. And again, that's the same as 9/1. And we know that 9 multiplied by 7 is 63. And 1 multiplied by 1 is 1. And so my answer here is 63. And over here, 12 divided by 1/13, same idea. We're going to keep the 12. We're going to change the division to multiplication because of the multiplicative inverse. And then the inverse or reciprocal of 1/13 is 13/1. And we know again that 12 is 12/1. 12 times 13 is 156. And 1 multiplied by 1 is 1. And we know that 156/1 is 156.